Hello buddy, welcome back to the show. I've got my new friend Mark here, and Mark was kind enough to contact me. He's one of my subscribers and he agreed to come over to my house and do an interview, so I really appreciate your time. And so, how long have you been in the Philippines now?
I've been here this time 2 weeks.
Just 2 weeks,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Now, you still working?
Well, sort of. I do a little bit of trading online. I have a trading account, so I trade equities from Singapore.
Oh, interesting.
In Singapore. I'm here primarily to potentially find somewhere to live, whether or not I'll land up here or Thailand or somewhere else, but preferably in Southeast Asia.
And so you had mentioned that you lived in America for a long time, like how many years?
I was there from 92 to 97. Bill Clinton was president. And it always seemed to be great times. I was there with my ex-wife.
Were you able to work?
Initially, no. My ex-wife is one. She's retired, but was a banker. She worked for an American bank in London, and we got married in 1990. Spent a couple of years in the UK, and she got this opportunity to work on Wall Street.
So, nice.
Yeah. Thought, yeah, I'm happy to go along with this. I'd always loved the States and Americans. So we spent 5 years living there.
Wow, a long time, yeah. And you were on the East Coast, right? Yeah,
we started off living in Battery Park, which gave us a lovely view of New Jersey, Colgate Building and Statue of Liberty and all that type of thing. And then eventually we moved over to Jersey City, to a wonderful apartment that had a great view of all downtown and midtown Manhattan.
What was the rent back there, do you remember?
I think we were paying a couple of $1,000 US.
That's not bad at all. Of course, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a one-bedroom with a gym on about the 8th floor, and as I say, the view was spectacular. So we stayed there for a year and then decided we wanted to stay in the States for a while, so we moved out to a place called Basking Ridge, which was about 20 minutes out on the 78 beyond Newark.
Okay.
And landed up living in Basking Ridge until we left in 97.
So you went to Singapore, huh? Because she had a job offer there.
She did, she did. In the meantime, I'd sort of met loads of people in the States, played a lot of sports, I worked as a salesman actually. I got a job with a company that were marketing money counting machines.
Okay.
It was an interesting concept, invented by a guy from Wales. And basically, if you go into a bank or anywhere, normally you see them count money. They put it in a machine and it goes whizzing around. This machine actually counted money. So, I don't know how it works. You would get a pile of bills, throw them on this machine, and it would come up with a figure. Oh, and it was 100%.
They could weigh them, huh?
It would weigh them, both bills and coins.
Interesting.
So you'd put these little counter things on, and it would weigh the coins.
Would it could you choose different currencies, or it had to be built for that one currency?
Well, it was for each different currency. I was working for a guy that had the marketing rights in the States.
I wonder how that'd work here, because our 1,000-note bills here in the Philippines, they used to be like a type of paper, and now the new bill, have you seen them? Like they're kind of plasticky.
They can't. The same everywhere.
You think they wouldn't weigh the same? I guess you just recalibrated, huh?
Yeah, in those days, it was a good concept. You know, you'd sort of, all the US bills were the same size in those days. So you
I think they still are, yeah.
Are they really the same? So you go into and do sales pitches to people, and of course they try and catch you out. How does this work? How is it possible? So I did that for about a year, and then I met a really interesting guy who had a leasing company, leasing whatever you wanted, portaloos to plant machinery. So I started working for him and did that for a year or so, and then my wife got pregnant.
Oh.
And because she was the big bucks earner, I became a stay-at-home dad. Oh. And loved that. Yeah. So
boy or a girl?
Well, this is another thing which I'll touch on later. A little girl. Okay. So a beautiful girl, born in Manhattan. And the interesting one with that, it was February '96, very cold in Manhattan, snowing, icy, and I picked my wife up. She was in there. She said, "Oh, look, I think I might be ready to give birth here." So I rushed through the Holland Tunnel in the car, picked her up, and we got to a certain point at Midtown Manhattan, and it's sort of, there's a bit of a gradient. Got to the bottom of this, and we couldn't get up the hill. You know, it was so icy.
And icy, okay,
yeah. It was icy.
Yeah,
you just couldn't go anywhere. I put my head out because there were a couple of cops there. I said, "Look, mate, my wife's heavily pregnant. I think she's going to give birth. We can't get up the hill." So we had all these cops pushing us up the hill.
How nice is that?
Really nice, really nice. Got up, she had the baby, and that was it. So,
how soon after you got to the hospital did you have the baby? Probably hours.
Yeah, it was actually. It was quite a long time.
One thing you figure out, out after the first one, it's like they go into labor, you got a lot of time left.
There was a lot of time, I seem to remember in the end they induced her, so the panic was over. But of course, first time round, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't know.
Panic stations, but it all worked out. So then we stayed in the States for about 6 months, and then my ex-wife got the opportunity to go and work in Singapore. I was sort of ready for a change.
Now, does your daughter go to school in Singapore then too, like private schools or something? Or?
Yeah, it's all private schools in Singapore.
It's expensive there, isn't it? Though I heard it was expensive.
It's extremely expensive. Everything in Singapore is expensive, but I always like to say you pay for quality.
Yeah.
But we were expats in Singapore, so the bank that my ex-wife worked for paid for everything.
Oh, nice.
They paid for a container from the States to Singapore. They paid for the rent, for healthcare, you name it, they paid for it.
How nice is that? That
was superb. And then, of course, what happened, you had the financial crisis in Asia.
Yeah.
The financial crisis hit, and the Maya hit the fan.
When was that? What was that? 07 or 05? Or?
No, that was 1997.
Oh, that 97.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we literally arrived in Singapore. We were there about 3 months, and my ex came back one day and she said, "Oh, I've been made redundant."
Oh gosh.
No big deal. So.
Well, it is a big deal when you think they're paying for everything, and then all of a sudden you lost your house, lost this.
It's true. But
wow.
To be honest with you, banking, I don't know if there's any bankers out there, I apologise for this, but it's a little bit of an incestuous industry. Everybody knows everybody, and within a couple of weeks she had an offer of a new job.
Did you have to move house and everything?
No, they just took over payment.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so she was working for an American bank, Bankers Trust. They're no longer in existence. Superb company, wonderful. And then she went to work for Deutsche Bank, who obviously a German
That's a big
bank.
one, yeah.
But the culture was very different. They don't like to take risks. And the department my ex was in, they were with Bankers Trust, they were big risk takers, but they made a fortune. You know, it's all to do with FX, business to business. But the guy that employed her at Deutsche Bank, an Australian guy who became a family friend and actually the godfather of my daughter, took my ex under his wing, said, "Don't worry, we'll be okay." And she went from strength to strength. You know, really took off. So then the original plan was to stay in Singapore for a few years, because subsequently, whilst we were living in the States, in Basking Ridge, we bought like half an acre of land, and I managed not to build the house, but I managed the project, because I'm sort of from a construction background. So we built a house, lived in it 3 months, and then moved to Singapore, so we rented that out. So we still had this really nice house. And the plan was to go back and live there. But as my ex-wife became more and more senior, she said, "Oh no, I'm not interested in going back to the States." And that sort of annoyed me a little bit, because I had a great life in the States. Singapore was nice, but I fancy going back to the States.
Tell me a little bit more about living in Singapore. I've been there, just on a cruise ship for a couple of days, so I really don't know anything about it. So what's it like actually living there for a foreigner?
People say that Singapore is very sterile and very safe.
Lots of laws there, huh?
Many laws, but it all works. Everything in Singapore works. It's a very efficient country.
I heard they had the best train system in the world or something.
To be honest, Mark, everything is excellent. I love Singapore now. I potentially would be living in Singapore as well. If you live there, there's so much to do. You meet a good group of friends. Like I was playing football, soccer, I used to run the Expat League there. We had 14 teams, all different nations, even an American team. They weren't very good, but they were nice people to drink with. There was always something to do. Every Sunday we'd all meet and go for a nice brunch, a champagne brunch. And get pissed on champagne, and the kids would all play together. And to be honest, the authorities would always leave you alone. If you were an expat, they would just leave you alone, unless you did anything stupid like run somebody over, or like that American
like
kid.
graffiti, yeah,
the American kid that was and got the cane, and everyone was up in arms. Oh, you can't hit this poor American boy. But if you're living in Singapore, like anywhere else, when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Now, what about visas for Singapore? Can you is it easy to go there and retire as it is in the Philippines or Thailand?
No,
or
it's almost impossible. It's when we were there, it was a little easier, but so many people want to live in Singapore that it's extremely difficult to get a work visa unless you're highly educated. It's basically impossible. I've got friends there who've been there for many years. Not guys with degrees even, but they went there with companies as salespeople or agents. They're managing to hold on. But now, to get into Singapore, the minimum you've got to have a degree and then have a company to sponsor you. It's really difficult.
There's no like retirement visas or anything like that like here? No.
It's a small country. I think they've got maybe...
Yeah, it's way smaller than the Philippines.
Oh, it's tiny.
It's
tiny. It's, I think, 6 million people, maybe a few more. The majority are Chinese. It used to be, I think, 90% Chinese, a few Malays, a few Indians, and the rest. They always had this goal to get the population up to 9 million. How they would do that, I don't know. It would be bursting at the seams. But generally, personally, I love Singapore. There's no corruption. Everything works. Like here, I've noticed since coming here, I went to change some pounds sterling into pesos. One, they don't like the pound for some reason. They don't mind euros or USD, but trying to change pounds, I had to go to a bank. I was in there about an hour and a half. They're all very nice, but it's in Singapore, anything, you just do it like that.
Yeah, and if there's the tiniest flaw in a bill, they will not take it. You have a $100 bill, it's got a tiny little tear in the end or a little mark on it,
really?
They won't accept it.
Yeah, luckily I bought some new £50 notes from England, because it's similar in Thailand actually. If you go to Thailand and try and change old bills, they say no. Or they'll give you a lower rate, a bit cheeky.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they give you a lower rate. So I always travel with £50 notes, that's the largest denomination in sterling. You get a better rate and it's okay. It's the first time I've experienced that actually, where they're not interested in good old sterling.
Now, where else did you live, or where else have you spent time at?
Well, I spent actually 15 years in Singapore, so
that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time, but it went quickly. I don't know how you.
But what kind of visa were you on for 15 years?
Well, initially I went in as a what they call it, like it's a legal alien in the States. In the States, I went in as a legal alien, and then eventually my ex and I got green cards.
Oh.
We gave them up because of this wonderful global taxation that the American government have. So even if you're living, I don't know how you get on, but if you're living overseas, you still have to pay.
Oh yeah.
You still have to pay tax.
I pay. I haven't been in the States in 5 years, and I pay taxes every year.
Yeah. At the time we were living there, the allowance was like 75,000 a year before you paid tax. Hopefully they'll put that up. But in Singapore, I went in as a dependent, I guess, and that's how I stayed. We were divorced within. Let's see, when did in 2000, I think we separated, and then in 2001 got divorced. We just grew apart. I won't go into all those details because everyone's been through that.
Where's your daughter at now?
Well, this is the other thing. So we had another daughter in Singapore in '98. I would say she's my pride and joy because just a wonderful little kid.
How old is she now?
She's now 25 and a model.
Wow.
Based in London primarily, but she's a fashion model, even at 25. She's getting a bit old now, I keep teasing her about that. So she goes off to Paris and Milan and all these New
Wow,
York.
what a life.
What a great life.
Now, does she have is she a Singapore passport?
No.
Is she born there?
No, she was born in Singapore, but as a foreigner, they don't recognize.
Oh.
So she's.
A lot of countries are like that. People think in America, if you're born in America, you're in America, and that's it, you know, for life. You can start bringing your family in, but Saudi Arabia, I guess Singapore and other countries, it doesn't matter if you're born there.
No.
If you're not a,
No,
you know, if your
they
parents
don't
aren't.
recognize you. They
Interesting.
Don't recognize you. They're a little bit racist in Singapore in terms of they want to keep the race predominantly Chinese. Now, I can safely say that. So, you know, I've got PRC's friends, people from China, and they've encouraged them to take up Singapore, a Singapore passport. Especially if they're women, because one, if they're intelligent, there's all this thing about intelligence in Singapore. They want to try and keep the standard up. So if you're an intelligent Chinese woman, they encourage you to get Singaporean citizenship. So then in theory, you have a baby, and then that increases the population. You know, they've got a big problem with their population.
Well, demographics, same problem with China. The one-child policy has destroyed China.
Oh yeah, exactly. But Singapore, you get good money if you have lots of children. So typically what happens, the Malay Singaporeans have 5 or 6 children. The Chinese, maybe 1.
Yeah.
I think it used to be 1.5. How you manage that 1.5 children, I don't know. Maybe you put it in halfway or something, I don't know. So anyone else, it's difficult. If you're the boss of Microsoft or, you know, one of these big hitters, of course they'll allow you to stay in. I think there's a few high-flying Americans that have set up in Singapore. There's a guy, an English guy called Dyson. He makes these.
Oh yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, the vacuum cleaners.
Yeah, exactly, and other things,
Yeah.
hair dryers, fans.
Yeah.
He bought the most expensive apartment in Singapore apparently, and he's lived there. He lives there. He set up his R&D base. So the Brits weren't too happy when he done that, but I don't blame him. Nice place to live. Yeah.
Well, you know, you could live in the UK, and a lot of people, you know, my daughters have dual citizenship, and I used to spend a lot of time in the UK. But I meet so many guys from England and other parts of the UK who just don't want to live there anymore. And like, is it the cost of living? Is it the weather? Or like, why is it you don't want to live in your own country? Or is it just better other places?
You know, the grass is always greener on the other side, isn't it? Personally, I love the UK, but in the summer. You know,
Yeah, it is nice in the summer.
You cannot beat the UK. Like,
When it's green
say
and
the
lush,
UK, you know, of course, you know the demographics
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
UK. I'll talk about England, for example. I was born in London.
Okay. And my daughters live in Surrey.
Oh, really? Well, yeah. Do you know which part?
I can't remember.
Surrey is a beautiful county.
Yeah.
It really is. It's spectacular. But getting back to your question, I think people are disenchanted with the way it's going. There's a lot of immigration, so the demographics are changing. Since COVID, a lot of people are still suffering with, you know, how to pay their mortgages, how to pay their heating bills. Everything went beyond belief.
How about Brexit? Did that hurt things?
Brexit screwed everything up. I don't know if there's any Brits out there who voted for Brexit, but I'm sure you're regretting it now. In my opinion, that was the biggest mistake ever.
I read somewhere where they say the reason that happened is, one, nobody thought it would go through, and it was like a rainy, cold day the day they voted. Some people said, you know, hell, I'm not going to go bother vote. It's never going to pass anyway.
Yeah,
and the people that wanted it to happen all went out and voted, and next thing you know.
Yeah, that's probably it. And of course, the guy that was Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron, he couldn't believe it. He didn't think the Brits would vote for it. Of course, England voted for Brexit, but Scotland, Ireland,
they didn't.
They didn't. So you can imagine how upset they are.
Now, isn't Northern Ireland not part of it? I thought they were exempt or somehow.
Well, Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. You've got the Republic of Ireland, which is still in the EU.
Yeah.
And that in itself is creating lots of problems because there's no hard border between Southern and Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit like Canada and the US. you know, you can walk across the border easy enough, so you can imagine the difficulty in trying to police all that.
Was that the way the Irish people wanted it, like the people in the north and people in the south? I mean,
it's mixed. You know, we don't want to get into politics or religion, but of course you've got some who want to remain as part of the UK for whatever reason, economic or religious reasons, and then there's some obviously that want to have a combined
more opportunities.
Yeah. So, you know, we've been through all those horrible times when the IRA used to.
Yeah, I remember all this back in the day.
Terrorism in the 80s, it was unbelievable, and of course we've moved on from that.
All I remember from that is like the one I saw on TV where it was like in front of Buckingham Palace and all the horses and a bomb went off and all. Yeah, I remember that. That was like the dark days of it.
Yeah, it was terrible. I remember I was only maybe 18 or 19. I used to play a lot of squash. It was a popular game in the UK in the 80s, and above the squash court where I used to play was an American oil company called Tenneco.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
You remember them?
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys working in the office were geologists in the days where they used to get big lumps of writing paper and write out and say, oh, maybe there's some oil there, we'll go in and search. There was one guy I remember, he was up walking with his wife past Harrods in London. And of course the IRA had planted a bomb and all the glass shattered, and he got cut to pieces, this guy. And, you know, true American style, they flew him back to the States and saved his life.
Wow.
That's how I remember being affected by the IRA. I'd heard bombs go off in certain parts of London, but never really known anybody that's been hurt. And his name was Mark as well.
But now it's kind of like
it's
peaceful.
All very calm. You've got the.
Calm.
I think you've got the new IRA. I think they're trying to start up again, but hopefully those days will never come back. I hope so. We've got enough terrorism around the world.
What do they want? I mean, what's their objectives?
Of course, they want a united Ireland.
Oh, okay.
That's ultimately what they want. But you know, it's just a difficult issue. It's like the Middle East, isn't it? You know, with Israel and all these things come up, and we all wish we could have just a nice, gentle life. But there's always this crap. You got the Ukraine thing. Why can't we all live in peace? That's what I say. But it's a difficult one. It's easy for me to say that sitting here, looking at the ocean, breathing in. It's it's a difficult one.
That's the thing about the Philippines is that it's so calm here, and peaceful. And like we've had a new president, totally different views from the other president, but there was no upheaval, there was no protests or anything like that when we got the new president. It's like they had marches up and down the highway and campaign posters up everywhere, and then the election happened. There we go. Okay, well, we got a new president. That's it.
Get on with it.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
And they did. And I've seen him do a couple of speeches. And Marco seems like a really intelligent man and has some great ideas. And everybody's behind him.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. They're behind him. They don't want. They're not protesting or anything. So that's a good thing about the Philippines. Is politics is not an issue here. And same thing. It's a Catholic country. I hear a lot of people say, well, I'm not religious and it's a Catholic country and the Catholics rule everything. That's not true. They're not. The church doesn't push anything on anybody around here. They really don't. It's like, and same with like the bureaucracy here, the police, the government officials and everything. They just kind of leave people alone.
It's nice.
They really don't bother you.
Live and let live.
Yeah, live and let live. Yeah, there's a lot of paperwork and stuff to get things done here, but if you're just patient, you get it all done. The big thing is that they welcome us here.
Oh, big
they
time.
really do. I mean, when you go down immigration and you've been here for 3 or 4 years, they can say, well, okay, you've been here 3 years, you're only allowed to stay 3 years on a tourist visa. Said, what you can do, you could just take a plane over to Malaysia for the afternoon and come right back and start all over again. Or you could do this.
Easy.
Yeah, they tell you that because they want you here. They said, or if you're married, you can do a 13A visa, or we've got a retirement visa. You're military, you get a big discount, and they're trying to help you stay here, and they really want you to be here. It's the same thing with the Filipino people. They welcome us here. We're not outsiders. They actually accept that we're here and we're staying, and that's fine with them. And it's hard to find that in other countries.
I've only been here for I think 2 weeks. I've been to Palawan, done all the touristy things. Having got onto YouTube and watched a few vloggers and thought, I'd like to try this. And I must say, every place I've been, the people are amazing.
Yeah, they're so nice.
So nice. We've got a lot of, I guess, in a lot of places, we've got a lot of Filipinas as nurses in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
UK.
everywhere.
In Singapore, the same. We had, in Singapore, I don't know, you have a maid in Singapore, they're called amas. And I always used to feel sorry for them because they would, they don't get paid a huge amount.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I realise if they bring that money back or send it back, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
They live in, so they don't have the cost to deal with. And of course, I always used to wonder, how can you be away from your family for so many years? We had one maid, lovely woman, probably about 35, 2 kids. Her mother was taking care of it, and she would keep $100 a month. The rest of the money she'd send back, she'd go down and remit I think we used to pay her every month. And she was such a nice lady. I've touched base with her online here to see if I can meet her, but she's away somewhere. And actually in the States, I remember meeting a Filipino guy. He was an architect, so obviously well educated. And I befriended him. He was such a lovely guy, and I sort of lost contact. I wish I'd kept in touch. Humberto, I don't know if that's a common Filipino name. Humberto, lovely guy. And my experience here has been nothing but praise for the people.
Yeah, the Filipinos I met on cruise ships, I worked for all the major cruise lines, and every ship I ever worked on, there were lots of Filipinos within the crew, and not just in like the lower positions. There were officers, there were captains, there were hotel directors, all through the departments of the ships, and they were all just so nice to you. You get on a ship, and especially a big Royal Caribbean, a Carnival ship where there's thousands of people, and you got to find your way around your first day on the ship. And the Filipinos were always, the crew officers down here, medical assistants here, crew messes over here, show you around, they'll take you and show you where things are and help you get settled in. And they're always so friendly, and it was really nice. They'd have a party, they'd always invite you to the parties they'd have. And it was just, I said, well, these are really nice people.
Lovely people.
Yeah,
and
lovely
of course,
people.
Speaking English, that's such a big bonus.
Oh, it is.
In the UK, you have like all the big institutions use the Philippines or India as call centres. And personally, if I get through to India, I can never understand a word they're saying. So frustrating. But you get through to a Filipino, and if you've got a problem with your gas bill or something, all comes here. Very polite, hello sir, can I help you, blah, blah, you can understand, and they always seem to resolve things.
Yep.
It's perfect, great, they're just wonderful.
I had to call one of my credit cards a few weeks ago, and I could tell by the accent it's Filipino, so she sorted everything out, and I said, I said, where are you at? She says, why do you ask? I said, well, I'm in the Philippines. It sounds like, she said, yeah, I'm in the Philippines. She's like in Cebu.
But really?
But I was calling America, and
so
then it's,
the
call center was
technology.
Call center was Cebu,
Yeah. The other thing with Singapore, with foreign workers there, it's a little bit like the Middle East. So they've got a small domestic population who they want to become highly educated to go into these high-tech professions. So they have to import labour. So typically it's from India or Bangladesh. I always used to feel really sorry for these people. They're working long hours and they're not treated very well.
No, they're like indentured servitude almost in a way. It's not slavery, but it's a couple steps above that. You don't have the same rights.
No. And the other thing, they can't stay there, so they might be on a contract, and after that, okay, you're kicked out. Sorry.
Yeah, I talked to a nurse one time, a Saudi nurse, and we started talking about Filipinos. He said, yeah, I work with several other Filipino nurses, do the same job as me. And they're wonderful people, how nice they are. And I said, well, I'm just curious, I said, do they make the same amount of money as you? He goes, oh, no, of course not.
No.
Of course not. He wouldn't tell me what the difference was. And I said, well, how about like days off? I said, how many days a week? Well, they work 6 days a week and they get 1 day a week. How about you? So I work 4.
Yeah.
And like it was tell that same job, but this guy and makes way less money, works way more hours. And then he said that one of the Filipinos he worked with had a wife and children, but they were never going to be Saudi citizens, never get any kind of benefits, nothing. And he was okay with that. It was like, that was fine. But he's a Filipino.
Yeah.
I'm a Saudi.
Yeah.
It's my country. Like, so there's, I love them. They're nice people. They're lovely people. But, they're not the same as me.
No, of course. A bit like the caste system in India, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
How do you climb from that? It's not fair world, really. But what can we
Yeah,
do?
yeah, it's not. Yeah, the caste system still exists in India. They're supposed to have gotten rid of it, but it's still there. And in Pakistan, it's still there. And
It's dreadful what
Yeah.
we have to put up with.
Yeah.
But it's beyond our control, isn't it?
No.
You know, it's a cultural thing and quite sad. Yeah.
but I just think that after I've been here 5 years now, and I just see such potential in this country. You look at Singapore, you look at Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia. I mean, the things that this country has to offer. You know, people that speak English. You know, a young population,
Yeah.
beautiful country.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much to be done here.
I would hope so. Of course, it has to come from the government.
Yeah.
The other thing with Singapore, I keep harping on about Singapore, but you've got to praise it. You know, they have this one party policy. There was a guy called Lee Kuan Yew who died probably 5 years ago. He was the leader from the 50s. So Singapore was part of Malaysia. When good old UK, Great Britain handed Singapore back, it had to be part of Malaysia. And this guy Lee Kuan Yew, who was educated in the UK, caused a big uproar and basically they separated from Malaysia. They took a huge risk because Singapore was just you know, a little dot on the map. They had nothing. And he eventually just turned Singapore into what it is now.
Yes, I heard a long time ago it was almost like Jakarta, like, you know, a lot of slums and pollution and everything.
And not that long ago.
Not that long ago,
talking
yeah.
60s,
Like
70s.
60s, yeah.
They call them, I don't know what they call them here, but in the village they call them kampongs. In Singapore means village. And, you know, I've got pictures, friends have shown me family photographs of them living in a kampong. And, you know, having coconut trees and growing mangoes and growing food, all that went. So what Lee Kuan Yew did, he got rid of all the corruption, no corruption, no opposition either, that's the only thing. So, you know, you have the PAP party, that's what they're called, and he ruled with an iron fist. We're going to do this, and this is, he introduced English as a first language.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, to encourage businesses, primarily the States, to invest, and it's just gone from strength to strength. It really has.
You know, that's one strength that a country that has a leader, especially if it's a good leader, that is there for generations, and other countries know, okay, if he says he's going to do this, we know he's going to be there for a long time. Whereas that's the problem with America. Like every 4 years or 8 years, you know, it's a whole new administration. And they might change their policy with Ukraine or Iran or whatever it is, and people don't know what's going to happen in America. It's hard to trust them.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that hurts a country.
It does. Of course, there's a fine line between dictators.
Yeah, there
and
is.
strong leaders. You've got Putin now. You know, you had Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi in Libya and all these people. Lee Kuan Yew was for the people. A lot of Singaporeans, the older generation, they really didn't like him.
He's gone now, right?
He died. Yeah. His son.
What's it like? Oh, his son took over.
Yeah, his son took. It's
So it's almost like
nepotism.
almost like a kingdom then.
Yeah, there's nepotism there. I think there's 5 families.
Sounds like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, with a lot less money, of course. Although their sovereign wealth fund is doing quite well. You know, they're very shrewd, the Singaporeans. They take money from the people. My Singaporean friends really dislike it. You pay something called CPF, and that goes into a central fund. It's managed by so-called whiz-kid investors. They're not all Singaporeans. They bring people in from outside. They invest money, and hopefully it's going to do well. Of course, they've made a few faux pas and lost money, and they don't really publicise it. So, like taxpayers, don't really know where their CPF money's going. It's as clear as mud, as they like.
So is there like pension or anything on there? Social Security?
Yeah, that's CPF. It's all
that's what it is.
Yeah, it's all to do with that. You get a pension when you retire. You also get a system there called the HDB, which is Housing Development Board. So you get an apartment. It's heavily subsidised, but you own it. You pay a sort of a mortgage, and at the end you own it. So everybody can sort of own their own property there.
Wow. How about healthcare?
Healthcare you have to pay for. You know, if you're an expat, it's wonderful. The hospitals are by far the best in Southeast Asia. You get people from Indonesia, many places. They go to Singapore to have treatment. It's really good. If you're on the lower scale, I guess you can go to a local hospital and they're not going to let you die. But it can be expensive, but it's there. You know, it works.
So going back to you, like you're checking things out, and where are you going next?
Well, I'm here to look around Dumaguete with the original plan of trying to potentially find somewhere to live, and then back to Manila for a few days to catch up with a mate that works there, an American guy, and then back to Bangkok for a few days. I had a crown done in Thailand. Dental is brilliant in Thailand. I don't know what it's like.
It's good here too.
Is it really?
Yeah, and very inexpensive.
Well, I looked into having a crown put in the UK, and I think they wanted £1,200, maybe 1,400 US.
Yeah, same in America. Yeah.
I got a friend that lives in Bangkok. He's had dental work done. He said, "I'll hook you up with a dentist." It cost me £300 for the best type of crown
ceramic. Yeah.
Yeah, zirconium or something he called it, and that paid for my flight. So I thought, right, I'm going to really go for it. So yeah, I'm going back. I've got a temporary crown in now. I'll have that fitted, stay in Bangkok, and then back to the UK. I've got a house that...
We're in UK?
Now I'm in a place called Worthing. It's in West Sussex. It's down on the coast. People might know Brighton.
Yeah, I know Brighton.
Brighton's like the gay capital of the UK. Very vibrant, lovely place. I'm about 10 minutes up the road from there. The reason I'm living there, and the reason I left Singapore, sadly my mother was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 20 years ago, and she was fine for a long time, and then in 2012 she fell, and I'm an only child, so I sort of thought, right, I'm going to go back and take care of her.
You have to. Yeah, your mother.
Yeah, my kids were old enough where I felt I could leave them. You know, I didn't want to leave Singapore before then, because I wanted my kids to have two parents, although I was separated from my ex, and they grew up fine. So I moved back to England, and Worthing is a place where people go to retire. They call it God's waiting ground, because it's all bungalows, single level, all old. Oh, it used to be all old people. So yeah, she died in 2022 of COVID. So that sort of freaked me up, and I thought, well, what do I want to do? You know, I worked hard enough really throughout my life and managed to invest well, got enough cash and a couple of properties, so I got a passive income. Do I want to stay in the UK, or do I want to go and explore and move back to Asia? I'd spent a lot of time in Thailand over the years. I know Thailand like the back of my hand. So I thought, let's try the Philippines. Either that, or I'd like to perhaps be in Indonesia. Problem with Indonesia is the language, perhaps the religion, a little bit unstable. You know, Jakarta's okay,
but Bali's supposed to be where everybody goes.
Been to Bali so many times you wouldn't believe it. Having been based in Singapore, you could go there every weekend. You know, I used to take my kids, we'd go, and I've done Bali. Too many foreigners there now. It's me a foreigner saying there's too many foreigners. I've got a Dutch friend that lives there. He's married to an Indonesian. He actually writes children's books.
Wow.
He's based in Bali, and he's got 5 dogs. He walks the dogs and has a great time. He said, "Mark, you won't like it here. It's changed so much. There's just too many digital nomads, and people, youngsters, just come and get drunk. They don't respect the Balinese. So I don't think Bali would be on the agenda." I did consider Lombok, actually. Lombok's another island very close to Bali. I read some horrific stories about them, like the locals are pretty poor there, and there's gold. There's gold in them, their mountains apparently. So what they're doing, they're poisoning all the groundwater. They're mining the gold.
With the arsenic, probably.
They're producing arsenic, and it's getting into the groundwater.
The arsenic bounds to the gold somehow, and then they burn it off.
I don't know the process, but you know, you're just getting all these kids growing up with deformities. So I don't want to. I'm not going to risk.
How did you like Palawan? I've never been there. I always wanted to go there. Is it as beautiful as everybody says it is?
Yeah, it's okay. You know, I went to the capital, Puerto Princesa first. I flew from Manila straight to Puerto Princesa. Spent a few days looking around there. Nothing special. Again, nice people. And then I went to El Nido, and then that's where people tend to go and do all the tours. They go to all these beautiful beaches.
Yeah.
You know what? I've done all that, and I wasn't that impressed.
It didn't resonate
beautiful.
with you, yeah?
No. I'm 62. You've got all these young tourists having a lovely time, never experienced Asia before. Good luck to them. Let them go on these tours. So what I did, I found a place which was probably maybe half an hour on the scooter. And it was run by a Filipino guy. He bought a piece of land. He had his own beach, about 100 meters of beach, and some huts, some tents. And I contacted him. He invited me down. Very nice. And what a fantastic place that was. It was a bit tough to get down there because he cleared a track, and you come off this concrete road, and you look down and you see this beautiful ocean, and then there's like a 200-meter drop, and it's like this, it's all rocky, and there's me on this little rented scooter. You know, I'm a biker, and I've ridden dirt bikes and everything else, and I was on this little scooter, and it frightened the life out of me initially. There was actually a sign halfway down suggesting that you leave your scooter here and walk the rest, but I used to go down just for the fun of it. I spent 4 days there, and I absolutely loved it. It was great. It was great.
How about a BGC in Manila? Have you been there yet?
Years ago.
It's really nice.
Years ago, again, living in Singapore, we used to play soccer tournaments all over the place. Bangkok, Jakarta. The one in Manila was always good. We used to stay in Makati and then just go around everywhere. So that's my only experience. So I'm there now. When I leave here, I'm going there for 2 days.
Check it out because it's very modern and it's like Miami almost, you know.
Yeah, I don't really want that though, Mark. I've lived in big cities, you know, New York, London.
So what's your ideal, if you could picture your ideal place, what would it be?
The ideal place would be somewhere like Singapore, maybe a little bit less organised, friendly people.
I mean, as far as environment,
beaches.
With beaches, you want to live on the beach, in the mountains, or in the city, or?
I'd like a combination. When I was in Thailand in November last year, and I'd had this lump on my head, so I went to see a doctor there, and they cut this lump away. I'd done a biopsy, and they found basal cell carcinoma.
Oh no!
So, you know, when somebody tells you you've got skin cancer, it's a bit of a fright. But he said, the guy, I remember he called me up. And he said, I've got good news and bad news. We've done the biopsy, we've got cancer cells, but it's the best cancer to have. So, you know, they removed it, and he just said, look, wear a hat, be careful, don't lay in the sun all the time. So now I can't really just lay in the sun. So
I never lay in the sun. When I go in the ocean, I wear a shirt and a hat.
Yeah, I've started doing that. I'm a big book reader. I love reading books, and it was always a pleasure to go find a nice beach and just open a book, have a few.
Have an umbrella, you're fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I find as you get older, I don't know if you find that the sun isn't as entertaining as it used to be.
Yeah.
It's a love laying in the sun, but no, not anymore.
I've never been a sunbather. I like the sun. Like, you know, I'm in the sun every day, but I'm not like laying out there or anything. Or, you know, even when I'm swimming, I've got cover on.
Yeah, it's sensible. And I can remember growing up. You know, I had loving parents, and they both had good jobs. So every year we used to go on holiday. We'd always go to Spain. The English always used to go to Spain. It was either like somewhere in Cornwall, which is a beautiful place in the UK, or Spain. And I remember my first trip to Spain, I was about 8, and it was on one of these propeller planes, you know, exciting young kid flying off. So we used to go to Spain every year, and I never had any sunblock or anything. I used to get burned and all sorts. So now I've got all these sort of brown marks on my back. None of them are too worrying. I let a guy look at it. But no, I'm going to try and stay out of the sun. Actually, my ideal would be to spend maybe 5 months in the UK and then the rest overseas. That would be ideal. But where, who knows? I love Thailand. That's one place I love. But
the only problem with that, I don't know what your thoughts are on relationships, but if you decide to get into a relationship, it's hard. I know a lot of guys have tried that, where they're in a relationship with someone, then they go back to their country for 5 months and don't see her for 5 months, and then go back and forth, you know. And it's difficult to take a Filipina to America or to England or wherever.
Yeah, never
So,
works, does it?
yeah.
Never works.
Well, it's not bad that it works. It's just they're getting the visas. I know guys that have done it to America and worked out great. They go back and forth. As a matter of fact, I'm interviewing a guy next week that's done it, and no problem at all. But I mean, just getting the visas the hard part.
It is. You know, it's easier to get into the UK if you come from France on a rubber dinghy.
Yeah.
You know, you get all these guys.
Or in America, you just walk in.
Yeah, just across the American border. It's much easier than being legitimate. You know, somebody married to an expat or they won't let you in.
I know.
It's crazy. I don't understand that at all. But from that perspective, I don't intend to. I'm not looking for a new wife. I love being single. Maybe I'm selfish. You know, it's
nothing wrong with that.
I love my time. Like on this trip, I go off on my scooter. This is the thing I found here. You'd be on these lovely concreted roads, following Google Maps, and then the next minute it says, "Oh, turn left here," and then you're on this bloody cobbly.
Yep.
You're in the middle of your nowhere. You think, "Oh, has this gone wrong?" You know, and it all seems to work. But I was in the Chocolate Hills. In the Hole, isn't it?
Yeah.
And following the map, it said, "Oh, turn left here." I thought, all right, I'll follow it. For about an hour, you're over like this on this little scooter. Oh, if I break down, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And all the locals are looking at you as if to say, "Oh, there's another crazy foreigner. He's lost." Big smile. The kids wave, and it's bizarre. But
it's like
I like the adventure. I love the adventure.
It's like that barangay that decided for whatever reason not to fund fixing the road. You'll see like concrete, dirt for a couple miles, and concrete again. And it's like that guy in charge, he's not going to spend the money. You know?
Exactly. It's so weird, but it all seems you just have to slow down and do it.
I've seen a lot of improvements. Like this whole highway here has been totally redone since I lived here.
Is it really?
Totally redone.
What was it like before then?
Just like a very bad asphalt road with no lines or anything, and now it's like beautiful.
Yeah. One thing I like about the Philippines, there's a lot of people riding around on bikes and cars, and it seems to work.
Works well.
I don't know if you've experienced any accidents.
Very few. I've wrecked my bike several times, but I can't blame that on anybody but myself.
It all works though,
It works. Like you get to a traffic downtown intersection.
That's where I'm staying now.
No traffic light, nothing. There's no rule like the guy to the left goes first. It's like you just look and you go when you can go.
Yeah.
And it works out beautifully.
It does. It really does.
And if you ever get to a traffic jam, when you finally get up to where it's starting from, there's a traffic control guy out there trying to do all this with his hand. And he's causing it, you know.
I'm staying downtown Dumaguete, and I must say there's more traffic there than I've experienced anywhere since I've been in the Philippines. But I like all that, you know, whiz along. I bought my own helmet from the UK. It's a good one. If I'm going to fall off.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, you know, I'm riding around with flip-flops and shorts, no leathers. Of course, if I was in the UK, I'd have the full regalia. But here, you just zip in and out, and you know, they toot. It's not an aggressive sign. It's just warning you that
they're coming.
I love driving my scooter here. I really love it. It's super.
Yeah, I don't mind driving here at all. Matter of fact, I actually, now that I'm used to it, I prefer driving here than in America.
Yeah.
Even with my car.
My God, the traffic I remember driving in Manhattan.
Oh yeah, I've driven there.
I had a job actually when I first got to the States. I couldn't work. I was like a legal alien. And I was staying at home. My ex was off to the bank every day. So I met this guy, and he said, "Oh, I know a guy who's looking for a driver." I said, "Oh yeah, I can drive." Yeah. So I went and interviewed with this guy, and he was a PhD, and he had like a consultancy firm in Manhattan. He was on 42nd Street. Went out he lived out in somewhere out in Jersey, deepest Jersey. Drove out, met him, and we got on so well. And he said, "Oh yeah, I can pay you cash. I'll pay you $50 a day." He used to pay me. So this is 1992. $50. He said a lot of the time I'm away, he used to go off. He was on the board of lots of different companies. He said, "I'll still pay you. All I'll need you to do is potentially take me to the airport and pick me up." And that's what I did for about 3 months.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It was a big old Lincoln Town car.
No, those are nice cars.
Remember them?
I've driven them.
It was like a big old V8, big leather seats. It was like sitting in a sofa.
It's like a fancy Crown Victoria. It's a good car.
Unbelievable.
It lasts forever too. They last forever.
Really?
Yeah, you put 500,000 miles on those things.
I used to pick him up at 6:30 in the morning. I'd leave my car at his place. We'd drive into town through the Lincoln Tunnel. And I knew all the little back streets, and we'd miss all the traffic, and he used to sit in the back and read his newspaper. We'd stop on the way, he'd buy me a coffee and a bagel. I love American bagels. Cream cheese and jelly, that's my favourite. And coffee, and we'd go in, and I wouldn't speak to him until we got through the Lincoln Tunnel. I'd say, John, what time would you like me to pick you up? He'd tell me. And he said, what are you like at gardening? And you know, English people have a history of being good with gardening. And I sort of said, I didn't know a bloody thing about gardening, to be honest. I said, yeah, I'm all right, John. I've had a garden before. He said, well, if you want to drop me off, go back to the house. He had 4 acres, mainly lawn. So if you want to go back and do some gardening, I'll pay you $10 an hour. So I used to go there, drive back and work in the garden all day. His wife would come out and bring me coffee and lemonade, and they said, oh, if ever you want to swim, you know, just come and have a swim.
That. Wow.
Brilliant.
That's great.
I remember being in the house working, driving the lawnmower for some reason, or picking leaves up, and his wife's name was Barbara. She come running out. She said, Mark, there's been a bombing at the World Trade Center.
Oh,
this
wow.
was 92. Do you remember when the...
Oh, yeah, the one with the underground and
the idiots from,
under the parking garage.
So they rented
first attempt.
They rented a Ryder truck.
And filled
they
it.
Drove it under, and they ignited it. And my ex-wife worked in number 1 Liberty Street. So you had the Twin Towers, and then you had number 1 Liberty Street. All the glass got blown out of her building. Wow. And of course, in them days, I don't think we had mobile phones. It was pagers or something.
Pagers.
Couldn't get hold of her, and of course, you're worried. She was fine, but that was the start of it, wasn't it? That was because before that you had the first Gulf War. And then that started it, and then you had the second Gulf War, and then everything happened. But that created so many problems. I used to go and park right below the Twin Towers, and I'd look up and think, oh, what an amazing building. And
I remember seeing the footage of that, and the damage was unbelievable. It's 4 or 5 stories underground, blown up, and that building stood there.
Yeah, it was solid. They had done a lot of damage to the hotel. There was, I think, a Ramada or some hotel. And the way they parked, it was sort of under, and it completely destroyed the hotel. It took them a year to do all the air conditioning and
fix it all back up.
And the lobby area was all destroyed. They got it back, and then of course we know what happened during 9/11. That was terrible. We lost friends in that. That's always upsets me. That.
Were you in New York on that day?
No. We'd moved by then. That happened. Was it
2000?
Yeah. That left. That's a horrible. I can still see the planes going in, and
me too.
That was dreadful. Ironically enough, we've lived for a few major events. I remember there was that, and then there was the Bali bombing.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Well, I belonged to a club in Singapore called the SCC, the Singapore Cricket Club. So it was cricket. It was the oldest established sports club in Singapore. And there was a football section, a soccer section, which I always belonged to. There was tennis, there was rugby, and the guys from the rugby section were on tour in Bali, and 6 of the rugby guys died in the Sari Club.
Jeez.
And their names are on the monument in Legian Street. That was another one. And then the tsunami happened.
Yeah, the tsunami was a big one.
Oh dear, that was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, well, that's life. When you live long, you see these things, don't you?
Yeah, just lucky to avoid them all.
Yeah. Well, Mark, we've gone about an hour here, and
oh wow, that much.
Yeah, that much. So I want to thank you so much for coming over and sharing a bit of your story with us. And everybody, thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Bye.